Hi everyone, welcome back to another podcast. I'm your host Phoebe, and today we have two very special guests with us today. Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Hi, Phoebe.
I feel like I just saw you like this morning, I think, today in the IB room, I think. So how are you
Yeah.
feeling?
You see us all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling? A bit nervous?
Good. I'm nervous. Yeah, of course. Never done this before.
But you're good at hiding it. You have to like be good at hiding it. Are you okay?
I'm fine, yeah. My voice is a bit croaky.
It's okay.
But,
Like the audio is gonna come like really well. So
Okay.
like, do you want to do a little introduction of yourselves to the camera, like your name, your job here at BISP?
Why don't you kick off and then I can
the
see how it's done.
background?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Good example.
So I am Jacqui Brelsford. I am a school counsellor here. I do some university and some social emotional counselling. This is my 7th year here.
Oh.
Yeah, so I've helped 7 years of year 13s go through and graduate out into their next stage.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi.
A good example.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm Philip Tucker. I'm a university counsellor here at BISP. I've come to the role quite recently. It's my first full year in this particular role. But before that, I was doing it on a kind of part-time basis. I arrived here with my family back in 2015 as head of humanities and geography teacher.
Really?
So
I
that was
didn't know
great for a
that.
long while. And then, and then I've been doing a little bit of counselling and now full-time. So that's me.
Okay, and a little background, like your country or something. Where are you from, like originally, and like how you find like life in Phuket, like compared to it.
Okay.
like-
Yeah. Well, shall
Yeah,
I
I
go this time?
mean, we both have an interesting background. So
Yeah.
yeah, you go
So,
first.
well, I was born and raised in Africa, in Kenya.
Oh.
And in fact, some of my family still live there. So it's a place I go back to a lot. But I'm British. So although I went to primary school in Kenya, I went to secondary school in the UK, to boarding school.
Wow.
And then I followed on and went to university in London to study geography.
Oh, that's how you became a
Where
geography
did
Yeah.
you go to university? I actually don't know the answer to
Well,
that.
so it's called the Polytechnic of North London,
Oh.
which no longer exists.
What is it now?
It's now called London Met.
Oh, that's
University.
London, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. I didn't know that.
So it was
about
fun being in London. And then that was a long time ago now, my God. And then, I didn't go into teaching immediately, but I sort of explored with a few different things, did a bit of traveling. And then eventually I thought, well, let's try teaching. Did a PGC at Goldsmiths in London. And never looked back really. Since then did a master's. But in my career work life, although we started off in the UK and I started working in Slough, just outside of London, I've been in the international sphere for a long time and have moved around the world in various different roles in schools. So before Thailand, we were in Beijing for 8 years, and then a host of other countries before that. So I feel I've got to know places.
Yeah,
quite well.
so many places.
Yeah.
That's actually really
So,
cool.
So cool. I
Thank
didn't
you.
know that about you. There you go. It's
Makes you
interesting
the
for me too.
cooler.
So I was born in London but raised in Africa as well. So I grew up in Zambia and Zimbabwe, which is where my mum is from. So and then I graduated from the Harare International School and went off to Canada for university. My mum worked at the international school and she kind of drank the Kool-Aid that the university counselor was giving out and was like, oh, let's look at all these options. And so that now in hindsight had a real impact on me. Like the counseling that I received is a big reason why I'm a counselor. So I went to Canada for university, studied international development and sociology. I wanted to like work for the UN and sort of save the world. And then moved back to the UK, did a master's, and then started working like in the charity sector in London. Loved London, but like working in an office wasn't really like doing what I wanted to be doing. And then I had a bit of an epiphany and then retrained to be a school counsellor and sort of go back to those roots. And probably should have been doing it forever. I love being a counsellor. I love working in international schools. I love the community. I love living abroad and traveling and whatever. And so, yeah, I often use that as a example with students. Like, you don't have to figure it out right at the beginning, and you can pivot and have career changes. And,
thank you for that. That's like the most interesting background check like I've gotten so far.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was not expecting it. It's just like the story just kept like getting like better. I'm like,
Well, we need to get you some more people to talk to.
Yeah, more interesting people.
Yeah.
So how about like a day in your life as a university counselor? How does like your daily routine go?
Yeah. My days are really diverse because I do both kinds of counseling, right? Which is because I was trained to be a social emotional counselor and then kind of fell into the university counseling position. And so since I've been here, I was hired as a university counselor, but the pastoral side, the social emotional side was my real love. And so I love being able to do both, but it takes a lot to manage because like there's the university stuff is kind of predictable because you have a timeline of things you need to do with students, and you can meet with them and plan those meetings and stuff. But then the other side of it, you can have a kid in crisis and be pulled off to deal with, another more pressing issue. And so, it takes a lot to juggle. So that's what I kind of like about being a counselor. You're not in a fixed routine like a teacher. And so, you can be meeting with students, you can be doing presentations like we did today. You can have parents coming in, you can, all sorts. We sit on lots of meetings with just trying to improve the overall like student experience for the kids in the IB. So we could be doing lots of different things in any given day.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. It's like a fixed agenda or anything.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we don't have like a teaching schedule. So it's kind of cool. I mean, you've just moved into this, so it must be a nice change.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You moved from being a teacher. So.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the most interesting I could say about this is just the change that it's been for me. So I've come from teaching, being a full-time teacher, head of department, but coming into this as a full-time university counsellor, it's just extremely different. So having a very structured day initially as a teacher, you have, like the students, you have your timetable. And you've got to be here at this time. Yeah. You've got to take that class. And of course, that's all fantastic and great, but it is very structured and you're sort of ruled by the clock quite a bit. So in this role, although there's still, like Jacqui says, there's still that kind of structure and timelines of things that you have to do. It's far more kind of organic, and you kind of never know what one day is going to bring, and your calendar sort of builds up gradually and nearer the time of things that you have to do. And as Jacqui says, that could be all sorts of things connected with the students themselves in year 13. Could be meetings, parents, presentations, faculty group. It could be just kind of having time to network with people that you need to, like university reps and so on. Setting up events, webinars, and things like that. So it's very different, but you still have a lot to do. But it's a little bit more down to you to structure it how it makes sense. What it means is, of course, you've got to be very much more kind of proactive in making sure that you get the work done. And there are downtimes, but again, like students need to, you need to take those downtimes and think, right, how can I now plan ahead for what's coming up in the future in those quiet times? So I love it. It's a really interesting job.
And like I like how, although we're supposed to have like meetings with you guys, sometimes we just like come in, if you look free, we're just like, can I talk for a while? And then I just feel like every student like did that before, just like come into their room and like
that's
just to tell us something.
I think we were just talking about that earlier, how in our parents presentation this morning, how I think we think that a lot of students are a bit reluctant to do that.
Really?
But as Jacqui said this morning, that's our job. Yeah. And we want students to be knocking on the door and coming in. And they should never feel any qualms about doing that. We always welcome them in.
Yeah. It's actually the thing I have kind of missed in the last couple of years that I've been doing both roles is I'm not as present in the IB Study Centre as I was before, where that was my only office. Now I split my time between two places. And so, just being there, like just the organic conversations and just the kid coming in to be like, hey, I was thinking about this, or I got this acceptance, and it's just
like good news or like questions, like random questions. Like that really makes your day, right? Sometimes if you like have a student you've been supporting and then they get like good news to share with you. And you share that
it's like the best part. Absolutely. When a student gets like succeeds in what they want. That's amazing. Yeah.
So like how do you help students like choose a university or like get into that university?
It's a $1,000,000 question.
Yeah. Like how do you help them? Like do you do everything for them? Do you like search for them, or like do you let them choose what they want? Like for example, which degree they want to pursue first, and then you go from there, or like how does it like work? The counseling.
Yeah, all sorts of ways really. 150 different ways. Yeah, I mean, we certainly want the students to be proactive in what they're doing in terms of searching and thinking about preparing for what they might want to do after school. We don't come in with okay, what university do you want to go to? I think it starts with more general and open conversations about what do you want to do? What are you thinking about? What interests you? What do you want to explore? So it's kind of a more gradual process. And I think, asking or a student to be saying what university they want to go to sort of comes quite late in the process, I think. There's a whole lot of stuff they have to think about before that actually happens. You might want to add to that.
Yeah, no, I think every student is different, and it's up to us as counselors to be flexible. It can also be frustrating because teenagers work on their own timeline, and so there's a lot of patience that comes with working with young people in general. But yeah, what works for one student might not work for another, and some students do know, like right off the bat, kind of have a bit more of an idea of what they want to do, and then some really have no idea. And so we've lots of kind of tools in our belt of we can do conversations we can have, like little exercises we can do to get them to think about their strengths or the things that they value. But really, it can kind of almost be on a case-by-case basis of how we help students. Yeah.
And do you have like, when like students come in, like, and they tell like sometimes like bad news, like, oh, they didn't get an offer at a place they wanted to study, then like how do you help like comfort them, or like what steps do you take from there?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of part of the course, because you almost want students to get a few rejections. I know it sounds funny, but because it means that they have tried. So our approach is that students should be applying to kind of a mix of universities, like universities that are reach universities that, they should get in, there shouldn't be a problem, and then ones that are like safety schools. And they should want to apply to all of them and should want to go to all of them if they get in. But if they apply and they get in, and that's fantastic. But if they don't, at least they've tried. And if they are listening to us and we're sort of doing our job properly, there should have been so much communication and conversation that it wouldn't necessarily be a surprise. So sometimes we do get surprised, but a lot of the time we would have been like, okay, well, we knew that was a bit of a reach, and so we tried, and never mind, and hopefully they've still got like 10 other great options. That was just one. But then also, life is like that. It's unpredictable sometimes. So it's all part of the course of learning. But obviously we're empathetic and we get it. It can be so stressful, people, families, students put so much emphasis on sometimes like one place or one path. And I think our conversation all the time is about being flexible, being open-minded, just having options, keeping your options open.
And I'd add to that just to say that, occasionally I think a rejection can be a blessing in disguise. In that, what that's saying is that, well, and certainly the university side thought that this student wasn't the right fit for our university. So I think a lot of the times, students might have an idea of oh, I want to apply to that college. It's a great college and so on. And actually getting that rejection is kind of a dodge bullet. They'll still have plenty of other options to go to. And of course, you'll never know because they'll never go there. So you won't see if it was a bad experience. But I get the feeling that a lot of the time that's the case.
Yeah.
And also just to add that, there are so many options that whatever, number of rejections you get, there's always plenty of places that you'll get offers to.
Yeah. I had a colleague before who used to compare it to dating, right? And it's like, if they don't want you, then you don't want them either. Kind of,
That's a good way of looking at it.
That's actually a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
But like also, I wanted to ask this, like, how a lot of the students have to juggle a lot, like especially when you start applying for like university application, you have like exams going on around the same time, and you have to make sure like your extracurricular stuff or like your predicted grades are like above like average. So like, what do you think makes a student like stand out, like in an application, like when you apply to university? Are they, like,
what makes a student stand out
from like others?
Yeah, again, it could be a number of different things, and it's going to depend quite a bit on what the university is looking for. So some universities might be more explicitly considering just grades, just academics. So for that, the answer is simple. If they're getting 44 or 45 points, they're going to stand out immediately. But then, there are a lot of universities all around the world that are looking for something a bit more than grades. And especially competitive universities where they have a lot of students with the same kind of grades, they're going to go to other things. So, I think the things like the personal statement in the UK, or things like lists of activities or recommendation letters. And if a student can show that they've, just done an awful lot of stuff, it doesn't have to be, across a wide sphere of fields, but if they can show some interest and some passion in some particular area, and they've done this throughout their schooling, not just in school, not just in the classroom, but outside the classroom, and they've taken part in things, whether that's teamwork or leadership and whatever it may be. If they've shown a passion and an involvement for those things, I think that can really help to make them stand out.
Yeah, and also not all. I just was thinking this as you were saying it. Like, not all students have to stand out. Like, there are so many options out there that you don't have to be the shining star that is competing against everybody else. There are all different options for lots of different people. And so, yes, I think having interest in stuff, doing things to just build up your character is really important, and then that can come across in applications in different ways. But yeah, you don't have to stand out amongst everybody and like put that pressure on yourself to like be the best. The best is different for everybody.
I think another like common problem with students is like, although they get an offer at a place, sometimes they don't have like the financial like aspect of it to like actually go there. But like scholarships are like a huge thing here too. So like, do you have any advice like for those like who wants to try like applying for financial assistance in like universities?
Yeah, I think this applies to the question before too. Like, and students, the earlier you start, the better. Like you mentioned about just all the other things that are going on during your IB, your exams and your IAs and all of that kind of stuff. So the earlier you start, the better. So being organized throughout your whole IB is important. And then adding the university application onto that is the same applies. And that's the same with financial aid. Like that conversation about finances is one that has to happen within the family, because regardless of whether your family intends to pay or not, like that's where the money conversation has to happen. So we tell parents over and over again to be honest with their students. Also for the students to maybe, take ownership of that conversation, I mean, I can only really speak for myself, but I always thought my parents kind of kept money separate, and I just was like, I'm going to go to university and it's just going to be assumed that they'll pay for it. And so don't assume that, like it's a massive investment on your parents' side, like have those conversations. And if you don't have them early on, it can lead to so much heartache, because yes, you can apply to a university, you can get in and then you get a bill for $100,000 and that's a lot of money for anybody. And then there's talk about scholarships. So, but what does a scholarship mean? You can get a scholarship for $1,000. You can get a scholarship for $50,000, and that can mean a different thing thing depending on your financial situation. So just being open and honest and talking about it early is really important.
Yeah, so just related to that and the type of scholarship and the amount of scholarship. So you could have two universities side by side, one offering no scholarships at all, the other one offering scholarships. And you might get those scholarships, but it comes back to the original, price tag. And that first university with no scholarships may end up being
still being cheaper.
Option. So there's all those kind of considerations that families have to take on board.
Yeah,
I'm sure also you've like seen so many universities, like you've like researched about it when you like recommending it to students. So what do you think makes like a good university? Well, not really, like you couldn't really define like it as like good, but like the aspects.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, very good question. Obviously there are the universities that are well known, that have a name, and they've got to be good, right?
Yeah.
They're well known for a reason. Yeah, but there are, as you say, so many universities around the world in good countries, in lots of different countries. And, a lot of them may offer something a little bit different. You have universities which have a little sort of specialist theme. So I think so many different things go for this question. Clearly, there are some common things. You would expect a good amount of research and quality research to be going on behind the scenes amongst the professors and amongst the faculty. You'd expect good teaching, good teaching and learning. You might be looking for a good contact ratio so that students aren't always in massive theatres with lots of other students. And then, the facilities that they might have, the particular programs and clubs that they're offering could be an important factor. So, an awful lot of things go into a good university. And again, it comes back to what is the student looking for? There's good in different ways. So it comes back to a good fit for the student.
Yeah, good for me is different for you. It's different for Mrs.
What I really found like helpful to me when I applied to BISP was like asking like alumni. So I asked like the graduating students like how they found the school, and then after only listening to them, I was like, okay, I think I can just try.
Yeah, that's really great.
I think they're a great voice to listen to.
Yeah, I think so too. It's like personal experience.
Well, especially they've come from our school because they're in a similar context to you.
Yeah,
so
they're like boarding. So like, I got like the whole aspect of it, like boarding, school, like and everything. So that's good.
I've had year 13s like kind of hunt down university students, like students at the university they want to go to, like on social media, and just get in contact with them. One student I found, I don't even know how she found them, but she found this person on Instagram, and they started chatting, and they're friends now at the university, like 2 or 3 years down the line. But I think talking to people who are there is so important, getting that insider knowledge.
So
and we're particularly keen, especially at this time of year when we're approaching key holidays. We're particularly keen as counsellors. Who's in town? Who's coming back to Phuket? Let's grab them. Let's put them in. So my daughter's coming back for the Songkran break, and she's not going to get out of it. I'm going to pull her in to get her to share her experiences with students, and she'll be willing.
That could be really helpful.
So that kind of thing really helps.
Exactly. So are there like any popular universities among students before? Like a lot of universities that they wanted to
there are. I mean, our students, BISP is a really diverse like student body, and that really shows in our applications. So whereas some schools, their students, like 90% of them will apply to one country, whereas we submit applications to 22, 24, like a lot of countries. And that might just be like one in Sweden or one in Japan or whatever. But it just means that there's a lot of diversity. And so, there's lots in the UK that, you can guarantee every year that we're going to get some applicants to go there. And then there's the ones in the US that everyone knows, but we don't tend to have a huge population of students go to the US. Like it's not, and not to universities that people recognize, because a lot of them will go for sports or to, different places. So yes, there are popular universities and well-known ones, but it really is finding out like what's the right one for the student, for all of the different things that are important to that student.
And it can change from year to year. I remember a few years ago when I think there was quite a sizable bunch of students that applied to Sciences Po in Paris.
yeah.
And a few of them
Paris
ended up going there. So that seemed to be a popular one for that particular year.
Yeah.
And then I think more recently, UCL in London has been a very popular one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it
this
does
year we've
change.
got a big group all going to Amsterdam to study business.
Oh, that's cool.
There's just a big gang of them. So I don't know if they'll all end up there, but I've seen more Amsterdam Business School applications this year than I have before. So
that's true.
it really just depends. Yeah.
And you mentioned about like having a timeline to actually apply. Like everyone is like kind of aware of when to start applying and stuff. So like how long does the process like usually take, like the application process?
Yeah, I mean, it takes, how long is a piece of string? The application process you could say that it involves all the preparation that goes on before, or you could say it's just the time that you start that application form. I'd say, essentially it's probably looking at, I'd say 2 terms or possibly 3. I think, when students come into year 12, they're still in the first couple of terms, kind of just getting the feelers out and still researching in general, which again is part of the application process.
Right. Yeah.
But probably not until term 3 of year 12 are students, readily getting documents ready. And then the big one is term 1 in year 13. I think that's when most of the work is done for applications. And then again in term 2 of year 13, I think students are still doing applications. But again, it depends on where they're applying. So some deadlines may be, in fact, at the end of term 1 in year 13. So you're going to see a lot of action from those students at that time. And then after that, they're relaxing a bit more. But the majority will probably still be making applications in the second term of year 13.
Yeah, but the earlier you start, the better. So
Yeah.
Once you hit year 12, there's no reason why you can't, be starting certain stuff. Yeah.
So do you have like any like advice for the current year 13s? I'm sure like a lot of them got offers already. I've been hearing in the IB room about their offers.
Yeah.
Or, like when they start leaving for university, like do you have like
Yeah, so we're in the process at the moment of kind of doing their transitions programming, and that's something that I am really passionate about, having been an international student and gone off to university from an international school. And so that just entails, some of the small things about saying goodbye nicely and like, sort of closing off things at BIS and then preparing for their next place. So I'm always going on about gratitude, and so like saying goodbyes and thank yous and affirming those nice relationships you've had here. Right now there's a group of students doing like first aid training, like just little things like that. And so my advice for them at the moment is to like enjoy their time now and make the most of it, and just enjoy, have fun. Like it feels super stressful, but at the same time you won't ever be in high school again. So
last time in high school.
Yeah, it's an exciting time for them. And I just say, certainly when they're leaving, just be open-minded and go into your new venture, whatever that may be, whatever university or whatever, if that's employment, just go into it with open arms and embrace everything that comes your way and make the most of it. And live in the present, live in the moment, definitely.
For sure. Also, they're like, I know a lot of friends, like my personal friends, some of them don't plan to go to university after high school, and they plan to like start working or like go intern or something. So like, what do you have like to say about that? Like any advice for those?
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken a lot about university, but we do also try to refer to it as like post BISP planning, so that anybody with any plan, military, gap year, work, like we can and will support them. I think if you are going to go into a job, that's great. You know, if you know what you want to do, or that's a good financial option for you, like go for it. I think if you're going to take a gap year, be intentional with that gap year. Don't just sit around playing video games. Like it's not actually going to bring anything to your university application if you then do apply. It's whatever your option is, like there's no shame in doing any of it. So don't feel like just because you're not going to university that you have failed in some way, or you're weird or whatever. Everybody's different.
Everyone's different. Do you have anything to add?
No, that was perfect.
That was perfect. 10 out of 10. Also, we finished about year 13. So about any advice like year 12s like me? I think is it quite early
Yeah, I mean, like you were asking earlier about the busy time. You know, IB, as you know, is extremely busy and can be stressful, so it's about really just taking control yourselves and being self-disciplined.
Yeah.
Because the IB just comes in waves and troughs. You're going to have busy times, and then you're going to have times when there's nothing to do, or it seems like there's nothing to do. And that's the trick. You're gonna find these times. So the trick is to really think ahead and be active in those lean times when there's nothing pressing. And that's quite hard. A lot of us just don't tend to do that. We work better when we've got deadlines coming
when
up.
the pressure is
and
like
that's
there.
unfortunate. But if a student can kind of just be self-disciplined and make their own deadlines and realize that, and then I think they can manage to balance everything out. So for year 12s in year in term 2 and term 3, this is actually relatively a quiet time compared to year 13. So this should be a time for really contributing a lot of thought to the university or post BISP research process, and start getting things together so that you're in a good place when you're making those applications come year 13.
Yeah, I'd just say go see your university counsellor.
Come and see us.
You have to like book a meeting with them.
Yeah.
Sure. So this is just like a way to wrap it up. But like I asked this like to like every guest.
Okay.
Any advice to like people want to come to BISP, like families or like students they're interested to coming to BISP?
Oh.
Advice.
Yeah.
Come.
Or like
come.
that's literally what everyone says. Like just come,
come.
like see for yourself. That's usually the answer.
Yeah, I think from where we come, we're really well resourced in terms of the university counselling role. So, and that preparation for the future, like yes, the academics and stuff are great, but not many schools have like 2 counsellors dedicated to like not that many students. Like ratio is really good. So, Mr. Tucker and I are there all the time. Like you can have, you can use us as much or as little as you want. So if that's important to you as a family, then you're going to be really well supported in getting to that bit after BISP. So come to BISP to have good support in leaving BISP.
Oh, that's such a good way to like put it.
Yeah. Definitely.
I didn't have a university like counseling team or like teacher or anything in my like old school.
Yeah.
So when I first came here and they were like, "What do you want to do after university?" Like right after like the first 3 months, I'm like, "I don't know yet." But she's like, and then you're like, "Just come and see first, and then we can talk about it." I think it was really helpful too.
Yeah. And not knowing can sometimes be crippling. And I always say, just chat it through. Like, we're not going to make you do anything that you don't want to do, but we're happy to talk through any and all of your ideas. And
anything goes, and there's no silly questions, as we keep saying.
Yeah. I think that's nice. I think I learned more now. I think I have to like book a meeting with you guys. I'm like, oh yeah, I could do this. And like, okay.
Anytime. I think you're my advisor, aren't you? Yeah, so you need to come see me.
Yeah, I have to come see you. I'm going to book a meeting right after this.
Okay.
Okay, so should I wrap it up now? Do you have any last comments, any last remarks? Or like shout outs? You can
just thanks for interviewing us. It's been
Thank
a really,
you for coming
nice session.
today. Thank you for coming today. Although you were like really nervous.
I
You
was.
still agreed to do it.
I've never spoken to one of these mics before, and they're just scary. They look like the tripods or something.
Oh yeah,
Forget that
like
they're
the
there
whole
after
setup.
a while.
You suddenly realize you're being filmed, and it's
Yeah. Sometimes I keep forgetting, like I'm getting filmed, and I just like go on.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
That's awesome. Thank you.
thank you for
Thanks.
coming today, and I'll wrap this up. No last comments, right?
No, not for
No.
me. Thanks, Phoebe.
Okay. So today we've had Mr. Tucker and Ms. Brelsford for our university counseling podcast, to say it, and we got to know them a bit more, especially their background, their interesting background, and a lot about how university counseling works here at BISP. So thank you for that. Do you want to wave to the camera? Bye.